Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night. It's 8:30. It's extra time. Just as we did an episode last time saying how mint we were, and now we are on a tragic 2-game losing streak. What are we gonna do? No, we're gonna be positive. We're gonna be positive. I'm not messing about. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, we have an awesome foursome with us tonight. Laura, good evening. You haven't got any stray knockers at your door, have you?
No, I got rid of that.
You got rid of that.
And now
Laura,
I can't hear her.
Literally about 2 minutes before we went on, Laura had a milkman at the door.
Yeah, milk lady.
A milk lady. So it wasn't a milk tray lady, was it? No.
No, I would have bought some if it was.
It's been that kind of day. And as you can see, join us again. We have Ian, who's just here. Good evening, Ian. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm sound. Glad to be back.
He's suffering a little bit from a little gym session, aren't you? So
just to clarify, that's the gymnasium, not a guy called Jim.
No, well, could have been a guy called Jim at the gym. You never know; these things happen.
He never showed up out hiding handles either.
Oh, what a nightmare! And joining us in a standing position today because his company invested in a stand-up desk for him. We are joined by our football manager guru, Scott. Scott, how are you doing, mate? How's Amsterdam?
It's really nice today, actually. Thanks, Roger. It's been a lovely day walking the dog by the canal with the geese chasing them because they're all horny and they're very protective.
Horny geese, eh?
Horny geese.
I mean, you've had it all already. You've had a visit from the milkman. You've had a vision of Ian at the gym, and you've had horny geese. I mean,
wow,
this is what you pay for. You know, this is what you get for
Fridays are made
for your subscriptions. So, thank you to all those people joining us live. We have the Irish Bear joining us. We have the Blue Moon Boy, Tom. Actually, I heard Tom's voice for the first ever time the other day.
Yes,
he was on Did you hear him? He was on the Spaces with George Culkin and the lads from Pod on the Tyne. So good to see you again. We've got Paddy. We've got Daryl. Daryl, don't worry. You'll get a few name checks later on as we go through our Irish Hall of Fame. We've got El Grande Salmons joining us. Really good to see all those people here. So thank you to those people for joining us live, and anybody who's watching later on, please stay involved with the comments as well. I'll try and get through as many as I possibly can as usual. But you know, we get a bit excited, a bit carried away. Speaking of carried away, I think we were probably all engrossed in the game last night. Probably woke up, I don't know, a little disappointed or a little bit flummoxed or a little bit confused. A lot of traffic on Twitter about that game last night. We're going to get into that. And of course, the lads have gone off to Dubai. Hopefully, not doing some influencing. Hopefully, they're going to be doing some hard training with Eddie and the rest of his coaching staff. And also, of course, the reopening of Shearer's Bar. We saw some Newcastle United Twitter alumni have been there already. So hopefully, we get some good reports from the newly reinstated Shearer's Bar as well. And of course, because it was St. Patrick's Day yesterday, we are going to be inducting an Irish player into our Hall of Fame. Now, I've gone with both Irish and Northern Irish, so Republic of Ireland and Northern Irish. I'm sure this will cause some controversy, but I'm not really bothered. But also, a really special mention for your man, Marty. Laura, I don't know if you saw this, but Marty uploaded a live link to a webcam of the Temple Bar in Dublin. And I have to say, I did spend some time watching what people were doing out there. So thank you, Marty, for that as well. I really appreciated it. It was good to see Temple Bar and the area around there absolutely buzzing on St. Patrick's Day. So we'll come to that later on. Good evening to Malcolm. Malcolm's keeping an eye on you there, Laura, making sure you're behaving yourself as well.
He's home alone this weekend as well.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Oh,
He'll be on
he'd
the Jack Daniels party.
Oh, he'd be getting a garlic bread special, and he'd be watching the Red Shoe Diaries. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Just me on that one, probably.
No idea what that is.
Me either.
Somebody will in the
Channel
comments. I'm
5,
sure.
ask your dad.
It's from his cookbook thing that he's been banging on about.
What, the Jolly Rogers cookbook?
Jolly Rogers, that's it. Is that
Jolly
is that
Rogers
what was on
cookbook.
it? Red Shoes Diary. Sounds very
Showed you.
suspect
I
to
don't
me,
know if
Roger.
it showed you how to dry up a banana and smoke it. What more could you want? Anyway, enough of
Peanut
that.
skins as well.
Well, there you go. Peanuts. What's that? Peanut
What?
skin.
You get the peanut.
Oh, peanut
Skins.
skin. Right. Okay. Right. So enough of peanut skins, and we'll get on with dissecting what happened last night. A lot of you would have been watching the live watch along with the lads on Over Smile Faces. Some absolutely brilliant viewing there. Laura, I mean, where the bloody hell do we start with that game? What do you think, Laura? What,
Well,
start off well, and
yeah, I thought the first half was pretty entertaining for the neutral. It was an end. It was proper feisty. I thought the crowd, was so hyped up that it had a negative effect on them in the first half. I think they were too rash. Everton, this is too rash, too aggressive, getting too hyped up. However, then into the second half, I think it kind of got into our heads a little bit, and just overall, it worked. And I don't think we were like good enough at all anywhere on the pitch. I think it's hard to pick out moments of the game, to be honest, because there just wasn't many that I can even remember that we could have. Maybe Wood's chance, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But overall, we weren't good enough, and I was annoyed, and I did put on Twitter that I was annoyed. And I know there's been like a Twitter meltdown, but we are allowed to be annoyed at a defeat. Like, it doesn't matter like what the context is. We got beat, and I was like devastated and annoyed at the performance because we weren't good enough. However, that doesn't mean I'm being over dramatic. That doesn't mean I'm calling players out. That doesn't mean I'm saying how shit or anything like that. There is allowed to be a disappointment in a defeat, and that's what I was feeling. Imagine like not being gutted that you got beat, like I was.
Yeah.
And however, like on the other hand, like we've had this morning, to put it into perspective, when you reflect, like we have had a lot of games. We didn't have our strongest squad. We've got a lot of players missing, a lot of away games, a lot of travelling. It isn't the end of the world, but we are still allowed to be gutted that the performance wasn't good enough, and we're still allowed to call that out, I think. And as long as you're not, I have seen a couple of tweets that are like calling players out, which I don't agree with, because I wouldn't call a player out. I wouldn't say it was their fault, and I wouldn't pinpoint the blame on any player, because overall it just wasn't good enough. So I think you're allowed, in summary, because I've been talking for a while. I feel like I'm just like babbling on.
Laura, the floor is yours. Somebody did say in the comments that Laura needs more time and needs more camera time. So there you go, Laura. You go for it.
Right. So in plenary, like if I'm teaching a lesson, in summary, we are allowed to be annoyed as long as we don't call out any players and pinpoint any blame. We are allowed to say the overall performance was good. Sorry, and we'll move on. We'll have 2 weeks off. We came back stronger after the last break and the last team bonding session. So I'm not worried in any way, shape, or form. I'm just disappointed in the performance.
Yeah. You're not broken as Frank Lampard's left hand, are you? You know, that's all we need to worry about.
How is he doing that? That was weird.
Just over celebrating, I think we've all been there, haven't we? So Scott, I'm going to come to you because I'm just going to take a guess that you're a man for the stats. So I wouldn't say that there was any standout performances, as in a player took the game by the scruff of the neck, but Bruno again was very, very effective. His stats for the game were really impressive. What did you make of his contribution to the game, and did it give you hope for he's going to have some time to integrate more with the players over this next couple of weeks, and is he going to drag us over the line for the rest of the season?
I think absolutely he had an impact on that game. He was probably, him and Shaw were the two best players for us, I would say. That first half, that pass he played to Kraft, that through ball was unreal. And then the ball just kind of went in the 6-yard box. There was nobody there. The keeper was nowhere to be seen. It was just begging for someone to hit it. And then about 5 minutes later, he made a run himself. And again, you wouldn't think to make that run, and he's obviously got that vision. You know, I did see some stats for him. There was a Twitter post I saw a couple of minutes ago. I think he had like a 94% pass completion rate, which what I noticed with Bruno, when he lost the ball, he got it back. I think there was one instance in the first half where Doucouré like mugged him off for the ball, and he kind of just got up, chased back after him, and just got the ball back. And then played it up the field. Like he doesn't mess around. I think I don't know if he's going to be that player who's going to drag us through. I don't think we need that player, to be honest. I don't think we need dragging through. But I think he's definitely that 3 we had in midfield yesterday was a 3 in midfield that I would probably pick as our strongest 3. No disrespect to John Joe Shelby. I think he's been absolutely amazing since Christmas. But actually probably just before Christmas as well. I think he was improving from there. But I think Willock, Joelinton and Bruno are the 3 that you want. They have all the kind of the areas covered in terms of you've got that powerhouse, you've got the one making the runs, and you've got the one playing the balls. So yeah, I think Bruno's going to fit in well. I think the break will be really handy for him because he missed the last one. He was out of Brazil. In fact, had he even signed by that time? I don't know if he had or not.
Signed and then
signing, wasn't he?
He went straight away there.
So I think he'll benefit from that because it's not only him learning the other players, but it's team bonding as well. And I think he'll pick that up. But yeah, I think, like I said before, him and Shaw were the 2 standout performers for us. And I wouldn't say it was a bad performance, but I wouldn't say it was a great performance. It was one of them kind of, a lot of 5s and a lot of 6s if you're looking at player ratings throughout the entire team. I mean, 5 and 6s aren't great, but they're not the worst thing in the world, are they?
Yeah. Ian, for me, it looked like we controlled the first half, but those players that we've kind of, for these last 9 games in that midfield, I know there's a couple of shouts on the comments for John Joe Shelby, but do you think Joelinton was perhaps brought back a little too early and Joe Willock wasn't, although he was busy, not quite as effective as it's been in the last month and a half?
Yeah, definitely not their best performances by any stretch. I think I agree with you. I think the first half, bar maybe is the first 10 minutes where it just seemed to be like Everton were all guns blazing, but didn't really have sort of a game plan. They were just in your face. I thought we controlled the most part of the first half without really threatening. And then the second half, it was. I don't know whether it was just the mixture of the atmosphere with what happened with the Rose West chaining herself to the goalpost. There was no.
That's so accurate.
Oh, it's like spitting dabs. I just don't know whether I don't think either team really got sort of any momentum in the second half.
Yeah.
It was very, very stop-start in terms of fouls, and I just don't think we could implement a game plan really in the second half to be effective. But like everyone's saying, sort of the break coming up, it's probably come at a good time.
Yeah.
Like Laura was saying about the 3 away games, a lot of travelling, a lot of time away from sort of the usual surroundings. But it's a case of, because I've seen quite not loads, but quite a few sort of kickoffs on Twitter about the performance. And if you look at the last stretch of 11 games, like we weren't going to win all of them. And if someone had said, "Oh, you'd go on 9 of those 11 games, you'll go unbeaten," you would have told them where to go. It was disappointing in the manner we've lost the last 2 games, but certainly nothing to take to heart. They'll sort of go away, rebuild, and come back and sort of fresh and ready to go for the next set of fixtures.
I think it didn't help that it was Everton as well, and I think if we had lost Chelsea and then played, say Wolves, for example, I don't think there would have been the meltdown. It's just because it was Everton. Everybody really wanted to beat Everton, and I think that didn't help the Twitter situation.
Well, I think Matty said in our group chat that he would have took 3 points out of the 3 away games that were had. I was probably the same. But I think I agree with Laura. I feel like what team you expected a point, not points against, it would have probably been Everton and then lose the Southampton-Chelsea game. But ultimately, the whole sort of overview is you've got the same amount of points as if you beat Everton and lost against Southampton anyway. It would have just been nice to sort of really leave them in it, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah. For me, I mean, there was before the game, like, I think it's a bit Aston Villa-ish to like, I want to stick them into the shite, really. Like, for me, as long as we're safe, I couldn't really care who goes down. Do you know what I mean? Unless it's Sunderland, maybe, but like, I'm not really bothered. As long as we stay up, as long as we're 17th or higher, I really couldn't care. And I think, like you have all said about that, the atmosphere, I think Newcastle did really well to kind of take the sting out of that game. It was a lot like, I think I might have put this in the chat about, we've been played like that by other teams a lot of time, like, well, we've had a head of steam up and the crowd's been absolutely aggy and the players are really tense and they're trying to overplay and they're trying to do this. And the other team are just like, yeah, we'll just pass this around. And, I think we've got a really good footing in the game. And then I think the halftime came, and then obviously the incident with the gentleman lashing himself to the posts. I think the momentum then swung their way. Laura, there was so many incidents in the game, but obviously the main one, or one of the main ones, was Allan being sent off, not Allan Saint-Maximin. We'll come to him later. But Allan for Everton being sent off. When you first saw it, Laura, is it one of those ones where you think that should be a sending off and the referees never give it? Or, what did you make of that tackle? And were you surprised about Pawson going to the monitor and sending him off?
I think when I put in the chat, didn't I, that when it first happened, I was like, that's shocking, that, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. I was fuming because it was so cynical. And then I quickly followed it up with, but I would expect our player to do that if a player like Maximin was flying off. I would totally expect someone to make the foul in the position that it was as well, to stop him going any further. I was happy with the yellow. I was shocked as everybody else. But I think the slow motion just does it, doesn't it? And I think it just looks way worse in the slow motion because he's off the ground. However, I've listened to like people speak, and I've listened to different opinions and things, and I'm kind of in agreement with them where a yellow would have been sufficient for me, and I would have been gutted if that was on, like, Wade got a red card for that. Because when I rang my dad, he went, "Oh, was it last man?" Like, and I was like, "No." I was like, "It wasn't." And he was like,
"It was several men."
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, last man." And I was like, "No, it wasn't," because he doesn't like watching them on the telly, so he didn't watch it. And he was like, "Oh, last man." And I was like, "No, it wasn't even last man." And he was like, "So why did he get sent off for?" I was like, "Because the slow motion absolutely done him, and that asked him to go and look at it." And I think Frank Lampard was right. If you've seen his interview after, I think all the decisions that have been going against VAR, I think they felt like they had to do something. And when the ref went to the monitor, Frank Lampard said, he was like, "No one's got the balls to go, no, I still think that."
Yeah,
I still
stand by,
it's just a yellow. And I do think it was just a yellow. And I also don't think, like, we whinged about VAR last week and not getting a penalty and stuff, but we got a decision for us and we didn't capitalise on it. So
yeah. So just coming to a comment there from Blue Moon Boy about this rivalry with Everton, that I mean,
I always wonder that. I don't know.
Is it because they're just Scouse Mackhams, or is it the purple wheelie bins, or is it,
Is it just since Pickford as well?
I genuinely think it's just
thought it was Pickford,
since Pickford, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps it's the Pickford factor.
And why are they called Scouse Mackhams? Why?
Because so for like the clubs in the northeast, like Newcastle are seen as like the big club, and then Sunderland's like the step down, and then in Liverpool, obviously you've got two clubs, so Liverpool will be the big club, and then Everton.
I thought it was because they really like Sunderland. I was
No.
Because of Pickford, I mean, not just randomly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few, Tony T and the Revenge of the Crumpet Men, which is possibly one of the greatest. Sorry, El Grande Salmon, you've just been absolutely done in the comments there, because that is a great name. Tony T and the Revenge of the... If that was a band, regardless of the style of music, I would 100% go and watch this band. So, singing to you live, Tony T and the Revenge of the Crumpet Men. So,
shall I tell you what it reminds us of? Have you ever seen Mighty Boosh with Milky Joe and the Cocoa Nuts? That's what kind of music it would be like.
Yeah. Definitely. So I mean, it was such an up and down game. I suppose let's kind of bring the focus back to Newcastle. Although there wasn't any like we're saying before, outstanding performances, I think we can all sort of show a bit of respect for Matt Targett's. Some of his set pieces and his corners have been absolutely tremendous. I mean, he continues to show what a really great investment he's been, and hopefully, we'll get him signed up for next season, probably in the Premier League, but we'll see. I think it's been it was a game just full of so many emotions, so many incidents. I think one controversial figure in the whole game who really, really annoyed me was Richarlison, who seems to run about and do stuff, but he doesn't really do a lot. Scott, what did you make of Richarlison's? I think we can say performance last night. I think he had all of his best party pieces out.
Yeah, I mean, he spent more time on the ground, didn't he, than he did on the pitch. He didn't make them runs forward either. Like for a lone striker, he was not what you'd expect. I think Calvert-Lewin coming on really opened them up and really got them playing how they should do. But going back to Richarlison, I think the fans got it spot on. He is just a shit Joe Linton, right? I mean,
yeah,
he was awful. And also, I don't know if you saw his post today on social media of his celebration, where he's like jumping like he's doing Swan Lake. I think the guy, he believes his own hype, and I don't think there's that much skill there. And I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, and I probably will be proven wrong.
He's all fought and knee shit, as me old granny would say.
But it is one of those ones where I don't watch Everton week in, week out, so I couldn't say, he's not there. But based on what I've seen on him in the last 2 games we've played, I mean, I couldn't even remember him being on the pitch for a while, and then he just kind of turned up for a foul or a dive. I think he was one of those players that you always have in the back of your head, he's a good player, him. Yeah. And it was one of those ones like, if Everton got relegated, or if, we went in from, it'd be a decent signing, but after that, I wouldn't have him in a month of Sundays. Like, they can keep him.
Yeah, I think. Ian, obviously Dan Burns had some really outstanding performances since he's come in, and strange that in the last couple of games he's been I wouldn't even say it caught out, because the pass by Jorginho, I can't even say his name, Jorginho, and then the finish by Havertz was absolutely world class, and probably would have took out 90% of defenders in the Premier League. And then last night he was great again. Some people pointing the finger, but sometimes you just have to accept that teams have scored a good goal against you, and like accept it and move on, or take your medicine.
The Chelsea one was just phenomenal. You could see where he got caught out, but the precision of the pass and the touch and the finish, I've literally got no issues with conceding a goal. Like, I was world class. Yeah. I mean, Chelsea are European world champions, so you would expect that from that. Yesterday, the goal, I was a little bit disappointed, but not just with him. There seemed to be literally the sort of the left-hand side of the team, and then the players in the middle just all went to the left-hand side, and no one tracked Iwobi. It was a very, very poor goal to concede, but you're not never going to play a perfect game every game. You're going to have slip-ups, and for the consistency and just the stability he's brought in since he's come in, and obviously he's sort of keeping the captain out of the team. I don't really have an issue with it. It was just a bit of a shit at it to concede the way we did, but it'll happen in football. It'll not be the last time that it happens. That being said, if it had been someone, I'm not Lascelles' biggest fan, but I think a lot more people would have been irate had it been Lascelles or Kieran Clark that made those two mistakes. I think that Dan Burn, obviously, he's done himself a favour with how good he's been, but like I say,
that's what I was just going to say though. In not to argue with you, but just because Lascelles doesn't sorry.
No, he said it right.
I know. Lascelles isn't good enough. Whereas Dan Burn is brilliant and been absolutely brilliant every game consistently.
So when you make that bit of leeway,
Laura, coming to you. I know you've, Allan Saint-Maximin since the start of the season, or possibly not since the start of the season, probably since Eddie Howe's taken over. Allan Saint-Maximin's been he's been on the tip of everybody's tongue regarding his performances, his application, or his perceived lack of focus, or whatever you want to say it. He came on again last night. He didn't have the impact that we've seen from him in the past. Do you think it's a case of he's not fully fit, he's not fully focused, or is he the type of player that takes a bit of time to get back into the team and back into the groove?
Yeah, I think the latter. And I have to really think about what I'm saying here, so that I don't speak out of turn, so Decker doesn't come for us, because
don't worry, we've got your back.
Because I'm not like he's absolutely greatest fan. However, I totally understand how good he is and how much for ages he was our best player.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's an impact sub. I think he should have probably started. I don't think his mind allows him to be an impact sub. His ego allows him to be an impact sub. I don't think anything about his personality allows him to be an impact sub. I think he has to either start or nothing, because for the past 2 games, he hasn't been effective at all. And he hasn't made the impact that Eddie Howe would have possibly put him on for. Therefore, I think start him and then take him off after, when he starts flagging or whatever. But I don't really know, because it is a tricky one. Ian, I know you earlier were saying you think there's possibly more to it than what meets the eye. And
conspiracy boy.
And I'm sorry to drop you in it if you weren't going to say that.
Oh no, I was. Yeah, it's fine. Don't know what you're talking about.
Don't worry, Daryl's on your side, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm still unsure, and I don't think he does himself any favors, like what Daryl's just mentioned with the Helios or whatever it's called, because it gives, and I don't for one second think that is the reason. I don't think his mind's too much on Helios or whatever it is. I think he'll have other people sorting all that shit out for him anyway. I don't think Eddie Howe would allow him. He's the
face, isn't he? He's the face of it.
And I don't think Eddie Howe would allow him to do that. I just think he doesn't it gives people an excuse when he's got this other thing going on to go, right, well, it's that, right, well, it's this. But it, truthfully, I don't know, but there isn't he hasn't been the maximum that we have seen.
We've grown to know and love.
I wasn't going to say that, because I wouldn't say I love him.
I mean, historically, Scott, we've always had players that divide opinion. Ginola, not so much Robert, but players like Bellamy, we've always had these players who've been a bit mercurial, a bit of a maverick, as we've seen in the Hall of Fame. Do you think that, like a lot of people are saying that, and like Laura's saying there, that he starts or nothing?
Absolutely. I mean, he either starts or nothing, or he comes on at half time. I think you cannot bring him on 75 minutes, 80 minutes and expect him to do anything, because he needs to be playing with other players of a similar skill level or of a similar stamina level. And to bring him on when other players, I mean, we were flagging before half time. Like, you can see some of the players were blown before half time. So to bring a player like Saint-Maximin, who probably isn't 100% fit anyway, you're going to get nothing out of him from bringing him on when Eddie did yesterday. For me, he starts, or he doesn't even make the bench. But then you also get the kind of people going, well, if he's not on the bench, there's uproar. And it's like, oh, we're going to lose him before we even started. So he cannot win, really. And I don't think he's the type of player that you would just bring down to sit on the bench. I think he would, based on what other managers have said about him, he'd probably throw his toys out the pram if that was to happen. Like, he either plays or he's getting some game time or he doesn't even travel down. I think he's one of those type of maverick players that would maybe do that. Again, I don't know, and I don't know if he would do that, but it comes across that way based on what others have said about him. I don't think the Helios game is doing anything about his football performance. It is a distraction, but you've got to think, like, what do you expect players to do on a night time? Like, what do you expect players to do on the weeks that we've got off international breaks when they're not playing? Obviously, they do training. They're only training for, 5-6 hours a day. You've got the rest of the evenings and that. Yeah, some could argue, why did he go to Monaco where there was a Helios competition at the same time and that was all on? I would imagine that was kind of him going to Eddie Howe, look, I need this rehab. There's a place in Monaco. Do you mind if I go do it? I can go visit family. It's my birthday next week, so I'll get to visit them. And there's this going on, bring it all through. But I do think with Maxi, I said this at Christmas, that he's kind of not the player we need right now. He's a player we need in 2 years' time when we've got equal skill level around him to bring the best out of him. And I think in a relegation scrap, he's not the player you need. And luckily, I don't think we're in that anymore. That's going to get clipped if we do go down. But I think, he's now the player we can use if he can get fit, we can use him to the best of his abilities because we can play with that freedom a little bit more.
Scott, how has he been performing in Football Manager is the big question. How have you managed him?
He's been all right, He's been all right. I play him as an advanced forward. So he's up in a front three with Wood and Wilson because I've got lucky and I can't put up injuries in the game when you start them where I did. So, so he's not been doing too badly. A couple of assists, couple of goals. Good performances, though, like 7s, 8s, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Laura, since Scott mentioned him, I'm sure we were all very heartened to see images of Callum Wilson back training. Laura, was there any particular the pictures from the training that you enjoyed?
Funnily enough, you'll probably guess, the fact that Hayden was only holding a 10-kilogram plate, I thought that was really weird. But no, speaking of Callum Wilson, I was just gonna add to the whole Helios thing. Like, Callum Wilson's got his podcast and no one whinges about that. And I know it might take up not as much time as Helios, but he's still got other interests and other things going on. And I love Callum Wilson, but because Callum Wilson's on a pedestal,
what's not to love?
Exactly. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed that picture. It was lovely. Yeah. And on a football, and no, it was good to see him back training with the rest of them. So hopefully it won't be long until we see him.
No, it was it was a sight for sore eyes for those of you who maybe who haven't sort of seen him in his full.
You're gonna show it?
I mean, if that's what people want, Laura, then
I'm sure
I'll have to see if I can find it and dig it out, But Ian, coming to you, we've talked about this fatigue, and obviously the lads are taking a trip off to Dubai. Has that come at the right time for you? Do you think we'll come to the end of this really tight schedule of games? I mean, Mikel Arteta would have had an absolute heart attack if he'd had the games that we'd had in the last, couple of weeks. But do you think that it's probably come at the right time, and what impact do you think it's going to have on the team as they come back?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it was three massive. Not even just sort of you're saying that any away game for us is a bit of a trek anyway. But obviously you had Southampton on a Thursday. You had to stay down there. So like you say, your players aren't in the sort of the usual surroundings. You had then Chelsea. Then I think they travelled back up here and then went to Everton. So a lot of distance covered. Again, a lot of games played in the last 2 months. Obviously without key players as well. I still think the mentality's there. I think Eddie Howe mentioned actually that it's a little bit of a mental break for them as well. Yeah, I think having that many games in sort of that amount of time having to stay switched on to try and get yourself out of where we were is going to take a toll on it. So definitely, I think the international breaks come at a really good time. I think it was because it was Saudi Arabia, the last one, wasn't it? And that's sort of when we came back. That's when the run sort of started. I don't think by any means we'll go on another 9-game unbeaten run at all, but it'll be just a case of getting the lads together, having sort of like say bonding time, and coming back with sort of fresh ideas, fresh game plans. Maybe you'll see some changes, but yeah, I think it's coming at a good time. Like I say, the 2 defeats, you take them on the chin. It's football. You're not going to win every game.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I say, the last trip out into the Middle East didn't do any harm. You might even see Dwight Gale doing his dancing again. Absolutely love that.
Just for Laura and any of our other Callum Wilson fans, there you go.
Wow.
I mean,
Even Hayden knows.
Yeah. I would say it's like looking in the mirror, but I've probably got more of a keg than a 6-pack. I mean, although that looks like it's, I would agree with the fishing rods, 18 abs. I mean, it's
like the cobbled street outside of Riverside. That's
something pretty special. Something pretty special. Okay, so last thing, just before we move on from the Everton game, I don't know if you were all able to hear it, but the summarisers of the game was former Everton player. Oh, bloody hell, I've forgotten his name now. He played like 1 game for England. He played in midfield for Everton for bloody ages.
Oh, Lee Carsley?
No, it wasn't Lee Carsley. That was random. Lee Carsley, no. Leon Osman. There we go. It was Leon Osman. But also Les Ferdinand. Lovely to see Les Ferdinand. But in the commentary box, usually when I listen to usually Liverpool and McManaman's commentating, he really gets on me tits because he's so all over Liverpool, like he just can't help himself. But Shearer, he was really, if you didn't know, you come across as an Everton fan. Like he was really quite, I think, was he overcompensating perhaps? I mean, Scott, I don't know what commentary you had over there in the Netherlands, but you know, Shearer did really well to be as impartial as he possibly could be.
I didn't have Shearer. I don't know who I had. It wasn't Dutch, but it wasn't. I didn't get Amazon. It doesn't work through a VPN, even though I've got Amazon Prime. So yeah, shocking. I think it's because it's a Dutch Amazon account, so it knows regardless. It's like you don't get to see the Premier League because you get it anyway. But it's yeah. So but I have read some of the. There's been like pictures with snippets of things he said, and you're right. It's refreshing to see a commentator who has such a allegiance with a club commentating on a club and not being kind of pro Newcastle or pro whatever. Yeah, I mean, again, I can't say 100% because I didn't hear all of it because I didn't say it. But from what I've read and seen, I know he was dead against the red card, and he had some choice words about VAR afterwards and how that should be run. And I agree with that. I agree. It should probably be an independent board, not a referee 1 week, then a referee doing VAR the next week and back forward. I think it should be its own team of experts of VAR. I thought he was bang on the nose there, but yeah, I didn't hear everything else that he was saying, but just what I've read, yeah, good on him. Like I think it's the way to do it because there's too many that don't.
Yeah, so he was really impressive, and Laura, I'm sure you were as pleased as I was to see Sir Les on the telly as well.
To be honest, I didn't catch much of Sir Les because I was at the gym, so I literally just got in for kickoff, and then so I didn't see much of him, but I'm sure he spoke very highly of her.
You know, friend of the pod, you know what I mean? Well,
I had Shea Given as one of my pundits, so if you want to use that as a segue, Roger.
Well, that's funny you should say that, young man. So just closing off there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Just closing off there, the Everton game. And our lovely trip to Dubai that's upcoming. We're we missed the Hall of Fame last week. I know Laura was very disappointed because she's done a lot of research, but because it was St. Patrick's Day yesterday, and actually, I think it was Tom in the comments that said that it's the patron saint of Northumberland this weekend. I can't remember. Cuthbert, I'm going to go Cuthbert, St. Cuthbert. So we should have maybe done Newcastle-born players. However, don't worry, Tom. That'll be coming up very soon. I've got an extensive list of possible Hall of Fame situations, we'll call them. So this week, we're going to induct an Irishman into the Hall of Fame. Now, we've had loads and loads and loads. And if you want to know of all the obscure ones, we have a person in our midst who is the main man for obscure Irish Newcastle players. Now, that word again, ambiguity. We're going to go with anybody from the island of Ireland. So Northern Irish or Republic of Ireland. We don't care. We are all welcome and we are all encompassing with our selection of Irish players. And we certainly have had some really cracking players who played a lot of games for Newcastle and had a really big impact on our club. So we'll get on first with our honourable mentions. So these are the players who could have made it but didn't quite. And then Ian is going to hilariously mention some really terrible Irish players. Not terrible, but ones who didn't quite make an impact. So Laura, I know you've got Malcolm has been waxing lyrical about a few of his favourites. So Laura, who was your honourable mention who didn't quite make it, but you thought was worthy of a shout out?
Yeah, like obviously he's like, I don't know anything about him, but I had to do it for our older viewers. And so for me dad and all the older viewers, I've gone with Tommy Cassidy because I've heard loads about him just when talking to people in the pub and after the game. And he played in like both cup finals of the 70s, and he had like over 200 games for us, like over 20 goals. Like was obviously one of the legendary players in the olden times. Is that right to say? I don't mean like you know what I mean.
The olden times, Laura, I believe they call it.
In the other but as well, like in the monkey bar, he used to drink after the game, and he used to sit in the same spot every Saturday, and would
love that, Laura.
Yeah, and after a few drinks, would obviously me and my dad would like stumble over, and my dad loves you, and would have a chat with him and stuff. And sadly, he's not very well now, so he doesn't get in. But we still speak to the people that he was with, and like he was a very nice man, and so he deserves my honourable mention.
Okay, thank you, Laura. We'll come back to you for your selection in a moment. Ah, Jesus Christ! I might as well bite the bloody bullet. Ian,
yes.
Who were your honourable bloody mentions? Who were they?
So I'm a little bit disappointed you didn't allow us to have this as my nominee. More so because I know a lot more about him. But my honourable mention, or at least one of them, is Daryl Murphy. Because when
should I just kick him out the stream?
You're telling me there's not a person in this room. I was going to say this room, but I'm literally the only person in this room. So
no, that's fine.
So literally,
that's you.
Everyone in this room would agree that the championship season that we had, yes, he was brought in. He was very much a horse for a course, but he did such a good job when we won the championship. And it was more so as well. I think he did an interview. I can't remember if it was with the Chronicle or the Shields Gazette or something like that.
Oh, he did a good interview. Well done, Daryl.
He scored 1 in 3 for it as well, which was...
How many games did he play?
That doesn't matter. How many games... I mean, dishonourable mentions. We should wait until we see how many games they play. But I just thought he did a really, really good job. Big Dazza Murphy. Oh, the Irish Chris Wood. See, I'm not fully sold on Chris Wood yet, so that's not really it's not fighting my cause. But I really liked him.
Any mention for Stephen Ireland or Leon Best? I mean, I suppose for Bestie, I should get Leon Best in because he was a bit of a... I would say he would possibly make it into my cult hero honourable mentions because Leon Best was quite an underrated player, I think, and he had a lot of potential.
You didn't let us have him either, so... Yes,
I did exercise my ability to veto. I'm very much like NATO at the moment, keeping an eye on what's going on. Thank you, Ian. I really appreciate your input.
No problem. If you're watching, Daryl, I love you.
Yeah. Scott, your honourable mention. who did you go for? Who nearly made it, but not quite?
It was Liam O'Brien for me. Been with us through 3 different divisions, 2 promotions. And obviously, he was the OG over the wall against the Mackhams. I mean, yeah, he was so close. But the one I picked, I couldn't not go with the one I picked. So, Liam O'Brien's my honourable mention.
Yeah. Some other ones before I get to my honourable mention. One that's just popped up on the screen there. Willie McFall, first cup winner, goalkeeper, representing Newcastle, Northern Irish player, and managed the club as well. So he had a real deep connection with Newcastle United. So honourable mention. It would be amiss if we didn't mention him. Also in that squad as well, David Craig as well. Not many players can say that they've won a major trophy for Newcastle. So to have 2 Irishmen in there, I think that's pretty good going. Mick Martin, of course, former captain of Newcastle United, and former, which we're going to come on to. He used to be in the commentary box for Metro Radio, and always used to give a good summary. That's probably before all of your time. Maybe Scott, you might remember Mick Martin doing the.
I remember Mick Martin on Metro Radio.
And Kevin Sheedy got a few mentions. Mark, he gave Kevin Sheedy a mention. David McCready as well. And Tommy Wright. And obviously we've had, your Damien Duffs and your Stephen Islands and more recent players. But we've had some really, really good players from Ireland. So long may that continue. A couple of people did mention Jeff Hendrick, but we'll move on from him. And somebody mentioned Rob Elliott, and I've totally forgotten he was an Ireland international as well. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll probably missed off a few, but we have had a lot of Irish players through our doors. So and I do remember when we were younger, we had a player play for Newcastle called Paddy Kelly, and he was about our age when we were going out. And Paddy Forster of this, he's been on our podcast a few times. When we used to go into town, we used to put on the worst Irish accents and he used to pretend he was Paddy. Hi, I'm Paddy Kelly, play for Newcastle. And they'd be like, oh, I get yourself in there. So we used to, off the back of Paddy Kelly, who probably made 3 reserve performances for Newcastle, we used to get a few free nights out on him. So God bless him. I'd raise a pint of Guinness to that man if ever I see him. So getting into the nitty gritty with our Hall of Fame entries and the suggestions. I'm going to come to you first, Ian.
Yes.
So, Ian,
just quickly, did you do your honourable mention?
Oh, I didn't know. Mine was David Kelly. Thank you.
You are one of me dad's favourite players.
You've just saved yourself, Bonnie lad.
As Tom mentioned there,
very famous for scoring a very, very important goal for Newcastle United, which possibly changed the modern history of Newcastle without being a bit too hyperbolic there. Very good servant for Newcastle. Played, I did write it down, 83 games, 39 goals. Not there for a long time, but he was a very, very important player in the history of Newcastle. So honourable mention for him, and probably one of the only players who's also played for Sunderland, but also still gets massive respect from Newcastle fans. So
he big shout out on the telly as well. Can't remember that. Can't forget that.
What's that, Laura?
Mine does.
Who? Did Tommy Cassidy play for Sunderland?
I know my next one.
Oh, your next one. Preview. Right. Okay. Thank you, Ian, for pulling me out of there, pulling me out of the shizzle there. So I'll come to you. Like I said, Ian, who is your suggestion for the extra Tyne Hall of Fame from Ireland?
So my favorite four-leaf Clover was Aaron Hughes. So to be honest, I don't know a great deal about him because he was just sort of, as I was starting to watch Newcastle and getting really interested in football, he was around that era. But with him sort of playing at the back, that's where I played many moons ago. I came up against Sammy Amiobi. I told you that story, but I'll just a name drop there.
Was that name you just dropped there?
It is, yeah. It ended as terrible as well. I got subbed at half time. I got beat 8-0. So, but yeah, he's very much a player that I like. I mean, I wasn't, despite what Jordan popped up in the comments the other week and said I was a bit of a Rolls Royce player. I wasn't. I was asthmatic and couldn't run, so I got played at the back. So I grew up sort of watching him, Andy Griffin, Andy O'Brien. So I didn't have a great selection of defenders, but like I say, from what I read, he was a good servant for the club. Scored in Bobby Robson's first game, so literally the first goal of the Bobby Robson era. But yeah, he was very much, again, similar to the players that I'm picking when we go through Hall of Fames. Not a big ego, very much no nonsense. Just did sort of the sensible work. Not a prima donna or anything like that. Popped up with a couple of important goals as well. So, like I say, the sort of little recollection of what I have from he would be my shout. Yeah, because I wasn't allowed Daryl Murphy.
Exactly, and quite rightly so. A lot of mentions for a lot of support there for Aaron Hughes. You know, he was a very underrated player, I would say as well. And the comment there from Dan just about tells you everything you need to know about Graham Souness. I think yes. Daryl, just keep your powder dry, will you? Jeez, honestly.
God.
Oh my God! Should I put him in timeout? Should we put Daryl in timeout?
He's normally at the club on a Friday. Anyway.
There might not be a turn on, and he's focusing on his train driver lessons. So, but there you go. Right. So, I think I'm gonna come to Scott. I think I'll come to you, mate. Scott, who was your Irish player who you thought deserved a mention, deserved a place in the Hall of Fame this evening?
Yeah, so none other than one Keith Gillespie. What can I say about Keith Gillespie? He was obviously an alumni of the class of '92, that famous class of '92 that everyone bangs on about. He was one of those, although they did sell him. He was part of the deal which saw Andy Cole go one way, and he came back. It was like £1 million sweetener, because I don't think Man U had £8 million to spend that we were asking for, if I remember rightly. One of the best crosses of the ball I've ever seen in a black and white shirt. I mean, for Les Ferdinand and Alan Shearer, he was just a godsend. We had him on one side, we had Ginola on the other side, and the balls were just coming in. And I mean, the rest is history when it comes to those two. 15 goals, 22 assists. I have done my research. I mean, you cannot forget about those 2 assists he gave Tino against Barcelona as well. Identical pin pass crosses into the box for those 2 headers. I mean, what more can I say? The only downside was that he missed both FA Cup finals through injury. And I think had he have played, they may not have been as bad. Maybe it's not the Man U one, maybe it's not, but the Arsenal game, I think he could have been a bit more of a provider than what we had for that FA Cup final, because it was a miss. And then there's also, and I don't know if anyone knows about this, but there's a story that Shearer tells about him when they were in Dublin, ironically, where he swung for Shearer, pissed out of his brain, missed, or he hit Shearer, and Shearer turned around and flattened him, and he cracked his head on the ground. And when the police turned up, they said it was a hit and run or something, and they escorted back at the training ground. So it's always a little fun story as well. So Keith Gillespie, one of my favourite players as a kid growing up. But bit of a drinker, bit of a gambler, which I think was his downfall.
Have you seen him in a talking or anything?
Have I seen? I don't think I have.
Oh, he's brilliant. I went to a talking with him, and he's like, there was him, Beresford, there's a couple of others at the City Hall with my dad. Oh, it was brilliant. Some of the stories he told, that story, the story about when he was out and he went back to some lass's house, and it turns out she had a bloke, and he come in and he switched the light on, and then when he realised it was him, he was buzzing. He got him to sign stuff, and that it was really funny.
And he had one of the best nicknames, Dizzy. I just love that.
What?
He also does a
Dizzy Gillespie was he was a trumpet player, a famous trumpet player. So they called him Dizzy.
Dizzy Rathko. Yeah.
Yes, it's not because he was a bit of a rascal, but slightly before Dizzy's time.
He endorses a takeaway around mine. So like, you get the menu through the door, and it went, this takeaway is fully endorsed by Keith Gillespie.
He also follows me on Twitter.
Oh,
we are dropping some knowledge bombs here, like absolute.
I actually think it is the same takeaway that Victoria Beckham was going to sue.
What?
What's it called? Why?
It's so basically the
was it called like Victoria Beckham's fish and chips or
no? So it was something, I think it was the pizza crust. Basically they compared it to being thinner than Victoria Beckham's waist. And I would
like that. I think it's a compliment.
Well, she obviously. I mean, what was she going to say? The fish and chip shop in Battle Hill, like they're not going to have that much money, like. But they had to.
We're going to sue you for
some
a wooden
bites.
fork.
But same takeaway. I think is endorsed by Keith Gillespie.
Oh, well, there you go. If
that's
anybody
what
else
kind
knows
of
of any
content you get on this challenge.
Anybody know of any other takeaways endorsed by Newcastle United players? Please add your comments. I'll go next, Laura. I'm going to leave you to the end. Mine is my favourite, and Daryl's favourite, obviously, is none other than Radio Newcastle, BBC Newcastle summariser, and former Newcastle United captain is John Anderson. Absolute legendary player for Newcastle. Over 300 games for Newcastle, 14 goals, and a very spicy free kick against Watford, I believe, was one of those. I tried desperately to find it on YouTube and download it, but I couldn't find it. But yes, John Anderson, very forthright with his opinions as well, caused a bit of controversy, but never afraid to say what he thinks and wore his heart on his sleeve, and played for 10 years for Newcastle between 1982 and 1992. And of course, played in an absolute classic Newcastle United lineup with the likes of Waddle, Beardsley, Keegan, Terry Mack as well. So an absolute legendary player for Newcastle. And almost ever present in that season as well. Only missed one game. And he was also, which I didn't know until I found this out as well today, he was a free transfer. Now, we will do a free transfer Hall of Fame in the coming weeks. So John Anderson will definitely get a mention there. So if he doesn't get in today, he might just get in on the free transfer one. But although I hear that Philippe Albert was actually a free transfer as well. So a little preview for maybe what's coming up. So he was my choice. John Anderson played 14, 15 games for Ireland as well. So he's a full international and still lives in the region. And he's a bit of a don. So hopefully, I'm sure Daryl will be dropping some comments there about other things he's doing that he has done. But hopefully, I've given John Anderson the best possible representation that I can for you. John Anderson is a legend, but I wouldn't want him doing the team talk. And of course, how could we forget the immortal line from this season? Just put it in the net. I mean, I will remember that to my dying day. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, Daryl's very excited. I think he means, I don't know if he's on about Gillespie or if he's on about thingy, but I'm sure Daryl would die a happy man if John Anderson even was on Twitter and followed him on that platform. So, Ando, he's got a rep for being a bit of misery, but that was during the Ashley era, yeah, I'll give that. And his testimonial, of course, in NUFC, Ando's All-Stars when Keegan, Waddle, Beardsley, Gascoigne all came back and played. So that's the measure of the man as well. So hopefully, I think we've all three of us have done a decent job so far. However, I think probably Laura, admittedly, is going to trump us all with her selection. I don't think any of us would probably argue with it. So, Laura, I'll let you take it away. Who is your nomination for the Irish Extra Time Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think it's got to be, and I think it's Shay Given. Played for nigh on 12 years for us, signed in 97. Didn't have the greatest of starts. I think it was November of that season. I seen when I was doing some research today that he had that awful Dion Dublin incident where he went to throw the ball out. But I listened to a podcast today with Shay Given, and apparently it was just when the new 6-second rule had come into it, so it wasn't entirely his fault. There was a bit of a misunderstanding there, but then went on to still didn't have the greatest of starts. I also didn't realize that he put in a written transfer request in 2000 because he wasn't. I was saying to my dad when I was talking to him, I was like, oh, I just assumed Shay Given, because again, it was still very much, I know I bugsied Shay Given, but it's because he was probably the only one I could talk about a little bit and knew of massively and knew was really good. But I still had to like look it up, and I didn't realize that. I thought he came straight in and was number one. I didn't realize Harper was still ahead of him. And he put in a transfer request, and thank God Bobby Robson denied it, because the rest of his history went on to, I would say, in the Premier League, he's Newcastle's most successful goalkeeper. I mean, he's played in was it the Europa semi-final against Marseille? Yeah. Played in Europe.
Played Champions League for us, hasn't he? I mean,
Champions League, Europa, all those FA Cup games. Fantastic goalkeeper, and just a shame that he didn't get the record. He was 34 games away from the record appearance when he got sold to Man City.
Yeah.
So it's just a shame. But yeah, just an all-round good servant. And I also like, and I've said this before about other players, I think I've said it when I put Warren Barton into it, about how when he's left, he's still, and you can obviously he's going to speak highly of who was here for 12 years, but he still talks about he still covers our games like he covered ours, obviously, for when whatever Scott was watching on last night, and he always speaks well of Warren.
Yeah,
he's an all-round good guy.
And if you remember the takeover as well,
when
they went to Shay Given, his son was jumping all over the couch with one of his old goalkeeper tops on as well, celebrating. Yeah. So there's obviously a family affection and affiliation.
Would have been born here, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you would imagine so. He was there for so long. And of course, obviously the comments there. He was a small lad for a keeper. I remember my favourite save. Well, there's a couple, but I'll go with
I've
the one against
down a couple as well. What one against
Kevin Phillips against
Sunderland.
As well. Yeah, that was a great save. Laura, which one was another one that you were?
Kevin Phillips, the Bramble when Bramble, I don't know if you remember, was going to put it in the net.
Yeah.
And just the instinctive save and the saves, several against Man United. Because I was laughing at the podcast I was listening to. It's on. He listened to it. Open Goal with Cy Ferry.
Yes, I think I have. Yeah,
I've listened to it before, but I thought, because I'd pick Shay Given, I'll listen to it again just to re-jog my memory. And he was laughing about how every like Sky Sports and all them, he was like, they always show goals against me. He was like, Ronaldo came back, and it was like, the last time Ronaldo scored was against Shay Given. The last time Ronaldo scored a hat-trick was against Shay Given, and he was laughing, saying, I did make some actual saves,
Yeah.
It was quite funny.
Scott, I suppose we might as well just have a little Shay Given love in, because he was the man. Scott, do you have any particular saves or particular performances from Given that you remember?
Not that I particularly remember. I think, obviously, 12 years as a servant is just second to none for any of the players that we've mentioned to get in. I always kind of just like you say, remember just for the size of him, you just seem to be able to be everywhere in that goal whenever he needed to be. But yeah, I can't really recall an individual save or an individual moment.
There was a game, I don't know if you remember, in the FA Cup quarter-final, possibly not a semi-final, quarter-final or fifth round, where Jermaine Defoe looked to all intents and purposes that he was going to absolutely bust the net at the Leazer's end. And Shay Given came up with, I would say it's probably better than the Kevin Phillips one, although I'm sure I'll be corrected. He came up with the most ridiculous save. I think it was a double save. I think it was a double save. So if anybody fancies, try and find that on YouTube. It'll be in his highlights reel because it was an absolutely insane, ridiculous save that he made. But yeah, and I think the way that he left the club, he could see the way it was going, you know. And although it did cause a lot of controversy, and he went to Man City when the money was starting to come in there, can anybody blame him for leaving and wanting something better? Because I think, as somebody mentioned before in the comments, some of the defenses he played behind, I mean, no wonder he's in the highlight reels for so many goals, because
he had his work cut out.
He wasn't very well protected, we'll say. But yeah, so Shea giving a lot of love in the comments as well for Shea Given, and I think quite rightly so. So our choices this week have been Aaron Hughes, Keith Gillespie, John Anderson, and of course, Ireland's #1 goalkeeper, I would say, Shea Given. So the newly reinstated Tyne polls we'll put something on Tyne polls there. So please get involved by adding your votes and then adding your comments of any Irish players that maybe we've missed out. A couple of shouts for Alan O'Brien. Go and search on Google for him. And Leon Best, obviously, got to get a mention as well. But I think we've probably picked out the best of the bunch, apart from maybe those players who won the Fairs Cup, to be fair. So thank you to all of those people who've joined us this evening. I've really enjoyed this evening. And thank you very much, Laura and Ian, and of course, Scott, all the way over there in the Netherlands. Late shout for Tommy Wright as well. 2 spells with Newcastle as well. He was a bit of a stalwart in goal as well. So, but I think, thank you very much, Davey. Good choices. So I think no games this weekend. England internationals coming up. No Newcastle players in those games, but I believe Fabian Shaw is playing for Switzerland. I think Sweden's Emil Kraft is playing, and there's one other that totally escapes my mind.
Dubravka.
Almiron and Dubravka. There we go. Almiron and Dubravka. Thank you very much. So all that's left there for us to say, I guess, nobody else can better sum it up. So I think I best hand it over to our Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
I didn't know where that was going. I've just remembered.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I'll leave you with Always Smiling Faces, very famous, and Gateshead's, one of Gateshead's favourite sons, our Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Have a really good weekend. We'll see you in a week's time. See you later, everybody.
Oh, fuck off! Fuck off! Fuck off!